Thank you very much for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about some new features that were added to the generic inquiry functionality in Acumatica, specifically features that were added in version 2020 R2. Let's take a look. So we're going to talk about two new features. So this is going to be a relatively quick presentation. The first one is the capability in generic inquiries of being able to automatically suggest tables with the joins to add to your inquiry. In addition to that, these suggestions can be used when you're creating reports as well. The other thing we're going to look at is a new feature that makes it much easier to see results from your generic inquiry. So again, the first thing we're going to look at is the capability to automatically suggest join tables. So let's take a look. So here we are in Acumatica. Let's go ahead and go to Customization, Generic Inquiry, and let's create a new generic inquiry. So the generic inquiry that I'm going to create here is going to pull data from purchase orders. So I'm going to name the inquiry Purchase Orders. And we'll go add our first table. So I want to start by pulling information from the PO lines. So I'm going to do a lookup and a search, and we're just going to look for PO line. And we'll add that to our inquiry. I'm going to highlight that line and notice that there is a new button labeled Add Related Tables. So let's go ahead and push that button. And because I highlighted the line, it knows that the parent table is PO line. So we'll go ahead and select that. And it will give me a list of possible tables to link to PO line. So the other thing I want to pull into my inquiry is information from the header of the purchase order. The line has item ID, quantity ordered, unit cost, extended amount, account number, sub-account, and other information about the line. The header has the vendor ID, the purchase order date, and other pieces of information that I may want to pull into my inquiry. So I'm going to go ahead and find PO order and highlight that and select that as a child table. And what you'll see is the join that it's going to create. So it's going to link based on the order types and the order numbers being equal between the two tables. So let's go ahead and add that. So that's added the other table. And if I look at the Relations tab, you can see that it did in fact create my relationship between the two tables. So let's go back to the tables for a moment. Now that I've added the PO order table, let's assume that I want to pull some information from the vendor table as well. So I do have vendor ID here, but maybe I want to go get the vendor name from the vendor table. Maybe I only want to print a list of purchase orders based on the vendor's addresses in a specific state, for example, or a specific country, any of those kinds of things. So now I want to add the vendor table. Well, if I highlight PO order and I also choose add related table, you'll see now that this table list has changed. This is no longer the list of tables that can be linked to the PO lines, but it is in fact a list of tables that could be linked to PO order. So if I scroll all the way to the top, you'll see that I have vendor. So let's go ahead and select that as a child table. You can see that it's going to link based on the pay to vendor ID equal the vendor business account ID. So we'll add that. Once again, if I look at the relations, you can see from PO order to vendor, I've got an inner join based on pay to vendor ID being equal to B account ID. The other thing we're going to take a look at is the new feature that makes it much easier to look at the data in a generic inquiry by adding a preview. Okay, back in Acumatica, we're just going to use the same generic inquiry I was building a moment ago. Let's go ahead and add some columns to my inquiry. So I'll go to the results grid, and let's just add from the PO order table. We'll add the order number, And we'll add the order date. And then for the PO lines, let's go ahead and add the inventory ID. And the inventory ID description. Now we're pulling this description from the line of the PO. You could also add a link to the inventory table and pull the description from there if you wanted to. And lastly, let's just add the order quantity. Now, just in the interest of time, I'm not adding any column information from the vendor ID, but I could add the vendor ID from there or the vendor state or any of those kinds of things. But let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just save this inquiry. So the new feature is being able to preview your results while you're working on the inquiry. So previously, if you wanted to look at the results, you'd actually have to run the inquiry, and they do give you a shortcut to do that here. So there is a button to view the inquiry, but that will navigate over to the inquiry, and then to get back to the maintenance screen, you have to navigate your way back. In version 2020 R2, there now is an icon that looks like an eye that will simply preview our inquiry. So this will pull data from our inquiry and let us know that we're getting the results that we want. So as you can see, it's showing our results. And so I have the order number, the order date, the ID, the description, and as you can see, I made an error, which is why we want to preview it. I selected the open quantity column instead of the order quantity column. You can push this button to get a full screen view of that, and that just toggles. And if we want to get back to our maintenance screen, we just move that back over to the right, and now I can go correct my error here. So instead of open quantity, I want order quantity. Once again, I can save and refresh that, and there's our results. So to recap, we looked at the new functionality to pull data from join tables that could be automatically suggested with the joins actually created. And we looked at the functionality of being able to preview the results as well. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can contact us at erp@nimsassociates.com or call the number on your screen. Also, if you have any feedback for us, we would really appreciate hearing from you.